Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live webinar, International Expert Roundtable, Digitalization of Invoices and Accounting Process. My name is Justyna Łukasiewicz, and I am the organizer of today's webinar. Mrs. Andrea Morgan is supporting me on the back end as my co-organizer. Before we get started, I want to go over a few points so you know how to best participate in today's event. In the upper right-hand corner of your own computer desktop, you will see a control panel with 3 tabs: Audio, Documents, and Question Chat. Use the orange arrow to expand and collapse your control panel. By default, you will listen in via your computer speaker system. If you prefer to participate via the phone, simply select Phone in the Audio tab and the dial-in information will be displayed. If you cannot hear us, please select Phone in the Audio tab and please contact us via the chat window. Furthermore, as a participant, you are automatically muted to avoid background noise. You also have the option to send text questions to today's speakers by typing your questions into the question window, the bottom tab of your control panel. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation. I will forward them to today's moderator and speaker, Patrick Binkowski. Questions will be addressed at the end of the panel. Any questions that remain unanswered will be followed up afterwards. In addition, you will find a PDF file in the document window in which all countries involved today are presented again with a short profile including their contact information. Please note that this live webinar will be recorded and made available to you afterwards. That concludes all organizational points from my side, and I hand over to today's speakers, Patrick Binkowski, Manuel Burati, Imran Farok, Thomas Grimme, Justyna Kupczak, and Ferdinand Schlapper. We hope you will enjoy the talk.
Digitalization is these days a very modern term. But what does it really mean apart from a definition saying that it is a process of transferring paper documents into its electronic version? How do enterprises really implement digitalization in their business and everyday operations? During today's expert roundtable with speakers from Brazil, Germany, Italy, Poland, and United Arab Emirates, we will present how do we do digitalization in Rödl Partner. My name is Patrick Binkowski, and I am Lean and Continuous Improvement Manager in Rödl Partner in Poland, and I have a great pleasure to facilitate the discussion. Many firms have already tried or became digital, but what really pushed them to use digital means of communication and work? Maybe their CEO, or maybe a plant manager, or maybe IT director. But I think that the real answer is that COVID pandemic gave us no choice. We either could stop our activities and probably go into a series of troubles, maybe even go bankrupt, or adapt to the situation, to the new situation, equip our employees with laptop, with headsets and other electronic tools, and do the business as we did before the pandemic hit the world. The very first question I would like to ask our BPO partner from Brazil, Thomas Grimme. Hi, Thomas, how are you today?
Hi, Patrick. I'm fine, and thank you very much for being able to be here today.
Great. I'm also happy that you are with us. And at the very beginning, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience and specify what is your area of expertise in Rödl Partner.
Okay, my name is Thomas Grimme, and originally I'm actually from Germany, as you might hear by the accent in English. However, I'm already living 11 years in Brazil now. I joined Rödl & Partner Brazil 4 years ago, and I'm the responsible partner for our BPO department.
Thank you very much for that introduction. So let's go to the topic of today's webinar. So how could you, maybe could you describe what are the law regulations in Brazil regarding e-invoicing? And the other sub-question, how does or if the authorities in Brazil deliver one central software for issuing invoices?
Okay, yeah. Overall, you have to know that digitalization of tax obligations specifically is already very advanced in Brazil. Many companies are already working almost paperless and only use data in electronic form. This includes the electronic invoicing. A good example for that are outgoing invoices. The companies submit their invoice information via an interface to the tax authorities. Based on this information, the tax authorities then automatically and usually within seconds issue the official electronic invoice. This can, for example, be observed if you go to the supermarket. After scanning all products, the cashier then presses the enter button on the cashier, and a few moments later, the official invoice issued by the tax authorities is printed out. It already includes all necessary information, such as, for example, the invoice number and, even if you opt for it, your taxpayer ID. One big benefit of this is that the invoices are all standardized. They all have the same format. So the same information is always located at the same position of the PDF of the invoice. It is also possible to download the invoices in XML, also in Excel format, and that then further facilitates the automatic processing within the accounting. But there's one important observation I would like to make related to incoming invoices. Invoices for incoming goods are issued by the tax authority of the responsible state, so they are fairly standardized. However, invoices for services, they are subject to tax on a municipal level, and therefore, as there are thousands of municipalities within Brazil, some of them use very different formats. To make this process easier, a lot of municipalities, they give you the opportunity to download all invoices issued against a certain taxpayer ID electronically, and for that you only need the access as the responsible accountant for the company.
Well, that sounds for me that Brazil is really very digital, and also I see that our Rödl partner office in Brazil is very digital, because I see that you are at the moment located in our Rödl partner digital office. That really looks fantastic, and thank you very much for that explanation. How does the also the authorities and the law regulations work in Brazil? Thank you very much. So let's jump right now back to Europe. And I would like to welcome warmly Manuel Buratti from Italy. Hi, Manuel, how are you?
Hi, Patrick. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you very much also for the nice welcome.
Thank you very much. Also, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and your area of expertise in Rödl Partner.
Well, I'm a tax consultant and CPA in Italy and joined Rödl Partner Italy in 2010. And I'm working in the areas tax consulting and BPO at the Bozen office here in South Tyrol, northern Italy.
Fantastic. And could you also deliver the answer to the question that to the point that we are discussing right now, whether also, as in Brazil, certain regulations already occur in the Italian law?
Well, let's say the situation in Italy is quite the same, let's say, as it is in Brazil. So the digitalization process is going on, and it is quite advanced, I would say, as electronic invoicing is mandatory for all B2B transactions between VAT subjects that are established on Italian territory. And all the electronic invoices have to be issued in accordance to the official structure provided by the authorities. And after issuing the invoice in the so-called XML format, you have to send it through the official channel provided by the authorities, the so-called SDI channel, through which the invoices get first checked for their correctness, and afterwards they are forwarded to the invoice recipient, which would be the client, obviously. And what we can also see is that facing the new situation, accounting systems generally in Italy have already adapted to the new situation, and therefore they have also API systems connected already to the SDI channel in order to handle automatically the electronic invoices.
That sounds also very technically advanced. And I have also additional question to that. Do you also use the OCR in that process?
Well, the OCR is not needed itself, as you already have data in the way you need it. But obviously, you have the possibility to use OCR in order to extract maybe additional information from PDFs or etc. As you don't need PDFs or other kind of documents anymore. So you have the, let's say, the basic XML data where you document where you have all the informations already in, and you are able to import automatically through an API system in your accounting system, which is normally already linked to the SDI channel.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's continue our journey in direction east, and we have a fantastic opportunity to greet today Imran Farooq. Hi Imran, how are you?
Hi Patrick, yeah, very good, thank you. Pleasure to be here today, join colleagues and participants alike, so yeah, thank you.
I'm also happy to see you here, and I mentioned that we have a fantastic opportunity to have you here, and also that fantastic opportunity means that we can use it to compare United Kingdom regulation and also United Arab Emirates, as you are responsible for those two, you are responsible for operating in those two countries. So could you also give us a little bit introduction of yourself and how is it linked the UK and UAE in terms of law regulations and software delivered by each of the country?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an associate partner here. I've been with Rödl and Partner now for 12 years. By qualification, you can say I'm a chartered accountant and a registered auditor. I am the kind of in-country head of the UK office. So I'm responsible for the audit service line, BPO service line, tax service line that we have in the UK office. And then as far as the UAE is concerned, I'm responsible for the audit and BPO service lines that we have over in the UAE. Yeah, you could say it's quite an interesting dichotomy between UK and UAE, and how does this come about? And yeah, for sure, it's a bit of a history lesson as to why there's this synergy that exists between the two. So way back when the UK was a protectorate of the UAE region, they were all separate emirates at the time. And of course, back in the 60s or 70s, they became a united emirate. So the links go back in history. But even to this day, the UK and the UAE are very closely aligned, politically, of course, but also economically. And that is where we as a UK office have synergies, because a lot of laws are very similar to some courts in the UK, in the UAE. They adopt English legal rulings, for example. The VAT rules in the UAE are a copy and paste from the UK. So that is where the two countries are aligned.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that comparison and also these historical aspects of those two countries. It is always good to hear that such cooperation exists, and it works also very well in our Rödl partner situation world. All right, so let's continue our journey and return back to Europe and return to Poland. From Poland is with us Justyna Krupczak. Hi, Justyna. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Patrick. I'm fine, thank you. It's nice to see you all.
Thanks. Okay, so how does the law regulations look in Poland and in terms of e-invoicing, and also do we in Poland have the central software that we can issue the e-invoices?
Maybe I first say that I am an accountant from BPO department, and I work for 7 years in Rödl partner. And then answering to your questions, in Poland, authorities allow, in addition to paper invoices, also electronic invoices, and the lawmakers have made also possibility to send invoices in electronic form. For example, a hard copy invoices can be scanned and sent by email. So invoices in Poland also being digitalized, but they are not yet in the XML format like other country. They usually takes form of the PDF documents. And we don't have a system that is provided by the authorities. However, at Rödl partner, we implemented an electronic document workflow named Airflow Invoices, and we used there an optical character recognition that you mentioned before, called OCR. And in the Airflow, this OCR can read the basis data from the invoices, even though each document looks different depending on the invoice issuer. And the OCR shows us the data that can read from invoices, for example, invoice number, issue date, currency amount. And what is interesting, we can teach the system which invoice item corresponds, for example, the currency of the documents. So despite the fact that invoices in Poland look different, then they have non-unique structure, OCR knows how to search all the necessary data and information.
It sounds that that we adopted to the situation very well. That even if there is no central software that is being delivered from the authorities, we can anyhow with the technology, with OCR, handle this variety of invoices that occur during the parties during the business. Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. And I would like to greet now Ferdinand Schlapper, who is located in Germany. Hi, Ferdinand, how are you?
Hi, Patrick, I'm fine, and thanks for choosing me for the session today.
It was also a pleasure for us. So at the very beginning, I would like to also ask you to give us a short introduction of yourself. Justina, thank you very much that you did it on your own. So Ferdinand, what do you do in the Rödl partner?
Yeah, I'm a digitization manager for the service line BPO, and I'm responsible for all applications which are used within BPO globally. So we have a lot of applications here, and I'm responsible for the complete service line of business process outsourcing.
Okay, so you are really the one that should digitalize or support the digitalization in Rödl partner. So I think that we picked the right person to be here with us. So going to the question, could you give us also your view and describe the situation in Germany? How does it look in terms of the e-invoicing regulations, and also whether the German authority delivers a certain central software to issue invoices?
What we heard before, it's not just for Germany, but in respect to say, okay, it's a German part. As we said before, we're using it for OCR and for the whole process of e-invoicing. And later we bring this e-invoices via interface to an API to the next steps in another bookkeeping software. And as said, also we're using it here in form for paper import from the mail. After this, we process them with the Rödl invoice, which comes with an OCR function, and we can read the main data out of it and bring these files and information with this so-called meta data into the other applications and read the and process like amounts, item, vendors, and dates, and something like this, for example. And furthermore, all of this information can then be imported into our accounting systems via the interfaces, via the APIs, and we use here more and more standards to bring it to the process.
Okay, you've mentioned about a tool, and this is the point that I would like to right now ask our panelist. Could you give us a little bit more about the tool you've mentioned, Rödl Invoice? What does it really do in a little bit more detail?
Mm-hmm. I think we will learn more about a lot of different tools, but in BPO International, where I also located here in Nuremberg, we use as a central tool for our more than not just regional clients, Rödl Invoice. It's our Rödl branded tool for the invoicing process for clients. And with Rödl Invoice, we drive the process of bookkeeping from scan, OCR, approval workflow to export the data into the following bookkeeping software, as mentioned before. So we have the whole process in one pre-tool, and then we go to ERP systems or bookkeeping systems.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that explanation. So let's talk right now more about the tools. So let's go back to Imran and how does it look in UK and also in UAE in terms of tools that you are using?
Yeah, in the UK and the UAE, so there's really kind of two ways that we can we assist clients. Number one is using the client's own ERP system. So we get given, of course, dial-in details to the client system, so we can work in their system. Or, of course, the second way of doing things is where the client essentially relies on us, whereby we can use, as my colleagues have all mentioned, Rödl Invoice. So that's something which we also use. So there's this kind of connectedness between various global offices, for sure. Or we can use third-party external software. A lot of cloud systems these days, of course, have become very popular. Things like Xero, Sage, and QuickBooks, these kind of multinational softwares, and all these systems have built into them OCR technology, where they so when you scan in or you send invoices to like, for example, a cloud-based system, it picks out all the key details, like the supplier name, for example, the type of, it even goes into details such as the service that's being provided, the amount, registration numbers, etc., etc. And the OCR readers that are built into these softwares can pick this information out. Also, in terms of API links, a lot of the softwares that we are using in UK and, as I say, UAE, because they're quite aligned in terms of the softwares we use to assist our clients. They have direct bank feeds. So when it comes to reconciling transactions, for example, for BPO purposes in the bank, there's no need to manually book in these data anymore. Of course, there is an API link between the bookkeeping software and the banking corporations, and all the transactions are automatically fed into the software. The software then makes a kind of intuitive matching of a transaction. There's a payment and there's an invoice, and I recommend, or I'm suggesting, that these two are the same. And at that point, of course, the software won't automatically go in and book such transactions. It will wait for an approval to be made. So yeah, these are the kind of tools that we have, and we work together on some projects, or we work independently depending on who the client is.
So does it mean that every decision is being done automatically by a machine, by a computer, or there is a certain personal attendance needed, something like a additional check whether everything has been correctly gathered from the document? Sure.
I don't think our clients are brave enough yet, nor are we brave enough to let a computer to decide all of it at the moment. So there is always a final kind of approval process that's done by a qualified bookkeeper before the transaction is booked into the system.
Okay, thank you very much. I hear a security behind that, and I feel really comfortable if I were the customer of Rödl partner. So I would like to ask also similar question, and also a little bit more about the R flow that Justyna has mentioned already. Justyna, could you describe a little bit more what kind of tools do you use in Poland in terms of digitalization and e-invoicing?
At Rödl Partner in Poland, as I mentioned earlier, we implemented an electronic document workflow which called Airflow Invoices. And this is a tool for electronic processing of documents such as purchase invoices. And Airflow Invoices is a secure electronic workflow dedicated to the company and the individuals, which means that only designated person have access to it, username and password. And the data we receive are stored in compliance with all security standards and GDPR requirements. E-invoices that send to dedicated email address is associated with the document workflow. And the invoices is approved by the supervisor, but what is important, this step is dedicated to person authorizing the expenses, and it's not obligatory. And we can set here a limit, for example, 10,000 zloty for all invoices, and all invoices above this limit have to pass the approval step, while below the threshold go directly to accounting approval. And this lets managers to verify and authorize only the costs that they are relevant from their point of view. I think the important thing that the Airflow system makes possible to break down the documents workflow within the company into, for example, branches, and we can modify all steps in each branch. For example, other limit can be set on expenses, or other person can authorize the expenses. And after the document is approved by supervisor, it is forwarded for bookkeepers who upload it to accounting system, the Microsoft Dynamics AX.
That sounds for me as a really sophisticated tool, and also the one that delivers a certain security due to the elements you've mentioned about the login into the system only by the authorized people. And also it sounds for me like a tool that is supporting not to bother a person to approve every single little expense that is not expanding at a certain threshold. That's fantastic to hear. That we have something like this, these tools available. And I would like to now direct the same question to Italy, to Manuel. Manuel, how does it look from your perspective?
Well, we in Italy have two different kinds of solutions for our clients. First, maybe we have, in some cases, we have access to the software or the system, ERP system used by the client in order to do the accounting directly on their software, and even handle maybe the ingoing and outgoing electronic invoices, which have already been imported in their system. Or if we do the accounting on our software or on our tool, we use a third-party software called Datev, which is a software that is also connected to the official channel for the electronic invoices in Italy, the SDI channel, and which allows us to import automatically, or let's say semi-automatically, all the invoices, outgoing and ingoing invoices in the accounting system, as it gives a proposal for the registration of each invoice in the accounting system, and our accountants then have to check the proposal, eventually adapt it, and then can definitely register the single invoice in the accounting system. And Datev, the proposal provided by Datev, is based on the historical registrations made on this counterpart or the partner, the client or supplier, and therefore takes out the information from the last registrations you made on this party. And so it's a kind of learning process. By the more registrations you make, the more the system learns, and therefore the better it gets. But at the end, there is still a human behind it who check the correctness and gives the okay before the registration in the accounting system.
At the point. So it means technology supports human decision. That's for me right
Yes.
now. It's a fantastic combination that really expand the speed of our activities, and also without losing the quality and without losing any important data that is behind it. All right, so let's go back now to South America again. I would like to ask Thomas what he thinks, how he sees the elements connected with tools that are being used in Brazil by a Rödl partner.
Yeah, sure. At Rödl and Partner Brazil, we work with two models. Either we do the accounting in our own system, which is called Sage, or if the customer prefers, we also work directly in their ERP. Can be SAP or some local Brazilian ERP provider. And as I mentioned in the first question, you then need an interface with the tax authorities to facilitate the issuance of the official invoice. Also, we are now working on an implementation of RPA, Robotic Process Automation, and the provider we chose for this project is UiPath, which is basically the world market leader in RPA. Our goal is to automate all repetitive tasks within the fiscal department, so that includes obviously the invoicing. And I would like to mention that this is a pilot project also for Rödl worldwide. But Rödl is not the only multinational German firm which chooses Brazil as its pilot for implementing RPA in its administration. We know of many similar successful cases from our customers which started in Brazil and now they are rolling out RPA group-wide. And that is, from my perspective, simply due to the facts I mentioned before. Brazil is already very advanced in terms of digitization of tax obligation, and it is therefore a very favorable environment for RPA projects. And one of the large benefits of RPA is that the employees are then able to take over more sophisticated tasks, which then help them also in their personal growth. One particular task in Brazil is therefore to find right employees, because educations for accountants and tax analysts is fairly poor. Therefore, Rödl and Partner Brazil is now also working together with the Chamber of Commerce, Brazil, Germany, and the well-known University Mackenzie from Sao Paulo. We developed a new dual study, Accounting 4.0, which is based on the already very established Duale Hochschulstudium in Germany. And in this pilot project, participating companies together with the University Mackenzie will then mold the accountants of the future who are already up to date regarding the newest technologies such as RPA or artificial intelligence and the new requirements of this accounting profession, which is undergoing very vast changes at the moment.
So it means that digitalization is not only for our customers, it's not only for our real business that we are doing as Rödl partner, but it is also for our employees, that they can focus not only on the very reputable, maybe boring activities, but they can focus on elements which require really wide knowledge and experience, which also they gain during such activities. Thank you very much, Thomas, for that. And I would like to ask you, how do you see what, apart from that, is the real advantage, and also maybe you see the disadvantages of implementation digitalization tools in Brazil?
Well, from our perspective, one of the most important benefits of digitization is certainly that there's a higher quality. And that is especially true in a very complex tax and labor environment such as Brazil. All tax obligations and additional information such as prior year declaration, journal ledgers, labor declarations, declarations from counterparties such as suppliers and clients, they are reconciled automatically via software by the tax authorities. And if they find some differences, then tax assessments are automatically generating, and that includes principal, fines, and interests. And even if the company can later prove that it only made a mistake in filling out a declaration, this will then generate a significant internal cost such as workload and might even trigger fees for lawyers, for example. And by implementing automated solutions such as RPA, these risks can be significantly reduced. There is, however, one very important reminder regarding this issue. It is absolutely necessary to have stable processes before you start a digitization process, because if you digitize inconsistent processes, then you will only multiply the chaos, and it would be better actually to not digitize at all. Also, for an efficient RPA, the process needs to be coordinated between each other to allow the robots to really be able to work 24/7. Therefore, the implementation of an RPA project is always also a very good opportunity to review your internal processes and to adjust them accordingly.
Yeah, that really sounds like a lean approach that is also connected with my position in Rödl Partner, that first, before any programming, the process really has to be streamlined, and really all the waste activities, non-value added activities should be eliminated from the process, and then it can be automatized. So also the quality was the point you've mentioned, and I would like to ask Imran right now, what kind of advantages, maybe disadvantages, do you see in UK and in UAE as a result of digitalization?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think Thomas really explained what the key advantages, I think, disadvantages of digitalization are, to be honest with you. One point from my experience in terms of course, the UK and the UAE, and again, I keep saying that they're both very closely aligned. So both sectors are kind of unregulated, especially in the kind of accountancy sector. They're unregulated. So pretty much anybody who's anybody can do bookkeeping and do bookings, invoices, etc. So there's lots of players in the market, both in the UK and in the UAE. So it's a highly competitive area on price. So cost is what's driving a lot of firms to look into, as Thomas mentioned, RPA and automation. So yeah, I think the main point that, or the main, in my experience over the years, things have moved from a value or value add outlook of advisor services, for example, and it's moved to one which is more cost conscious about things.
Okay, so I hear also the cost orientation is also somehow embedded in all the processes that are directed to digitalize activities. Okay, thank you very much, Imran, for that answer. And also I would like to ask our head of digitalization, what is the main advantage, disadvantage, Ferdinand, from your perspective?
Now I just talk for Germany, so cost and quality is also a point here, but in Germany a lot of them was driven by paper handling in the past. For Germany, you have to know that we have a long history with paper as the single point of trust, or for signatures to sign it and give it to the next guy here. So a paperless workflow and the revision, safe process and approval of incoming invoices and booking offices was, from legal side, not so easy to set up here in Germany. And for that, that was one of the biggest tasks here. And we now also provide our clients with an invoice inbox, where the clients, suppliers can send the invoices in form of paper directly to us as an accountant, and so we can process everything for our client in one process, in one hand, and have it totally in digital. So then we digitize it and use it for the rest of the paperless process. And in case we don't want to have expensive handling of paper in the future anymore, so the big benefit is elimination of paper and of a faster process in total here.
Great. Also sounds for me a little bit ecological, as we are getting rid of the paper that we are using and only make it digital. So that's absolutely also the point connected with digitalization. And Justyna, how do you see the advantages and disadvantages from Polish perspective?
Maybe I start with disadvantages. And I think the most disadvantages about digitalization is that everyone have their own habit and they don't want to change things that they used to. And we are afraid of changes and technology. However, digitalization of invoices brings great benefits. And apart from the benefits mentioned by my colleagues, I think that the main advantages is the electronic archive of invoices that can be accessed anytime. And it is very easy and quick to find and download invoices, for example, for tax inspectors. And the electronic archive are also one place for all invoice-related information. Because we can interact by airflow system and all explanation is saved there. And such an electronic archive can also be used for controlling expenses by exporting a report of post invoices to XLS and compare example of which branch had more costs than other or than the previous year. And the system, I think, can also act as a budgeting tool. For example, we can export a report of invoices that have not yet been posted and check the payment dates of invoices to confirm the cash requirements on the account. And we also cannot forget about transfer archive from cabinet to server. So in my opinion, digitalization brings positive changes.
What I hear also from that answer is that it is also connected with not diving into dust in some dirt, dark place where the documents are being stored. For example, an auditor can easily sitting in front of computer in a very comfortable, nice place, check all the data he requires to do the job. So that's also definitely an advantage. And I would like to also direct that question to Italy. Manuel, how do you see the advantages and disadvantages from perspective of Italy?
Well, let's say that we've already seen that with the implementation of the electronic invoicing, introduction of the electronic invoicing in Italy, there was a significant reduction of paperwork, and therefore we can say there's no more need of dusty storage rooms, etc. And as we now are able to save all the bookkeeping relevant data and documents together as package, and then share this package with whom we want or with the persons the client want. And in addition to that, there's also another advantage from our side that we can say that with the, as I mentioned before, the import of the invoice directly in the bookkeeping system, it is possible now to save every invoice together with its registration, and that simplifies a lot the exchange or the discussions with our clients, which we have when we have checks on single positions of trial balance, etc. As we have already the document based on the registration itself directly saved on the registration itself, and that's a great advantage. And also the sharing of the document of the archive itself is really one of the greatest advantages I see. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It also sounds for me accessibility. So it is not necessary to physically be close to the document that we are looking, but of course, in a safe way, grant access to someone who would like to see a certain document and check the data is required. All right, so we went through all the questions that we have already prepared for our webinar. So right now is, I think, the most interesting part. So the questions from our audience. So let me check what I can find on chat in terms of your questions. I see one already written, and the question stands right now. how much confidence do you have on reading or interpretation of the system? How much depends on human intervention on this process? So I understand that this is the question connected with this automatization that we mentioned during our webinar. So if I could direct that question, Imran, to you, do you have such figure that you can reply on that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Yeah, thanks for the question. With the systems that we use, the kind of AI, should I say, whatever technology that they're using now, AI or OCR reading, it picks up around about there's about a 85 to 90% hit rate. So that's how successful it can pluck out the data from a document. So the level of human involvement, of course, it's still there, and from a practice risk perspective, we would still require that to be there. However, you know, in terms of manpower, you know, we ordinarily would have had a third more labor employed here at the UK office, for example, or UAE, if these kind of technologies were not being used. So yeah, we're picking up around about 80 to 85, yeah, 85 to 90% of data that are automatically being read from the systems that we use.
Okay, thank you for the figures. I hope that they answer the question that was.
Maybe I could add something, because
sure, Ferdinand, go ahead.
Because we have this question very often, and it's a discussion: have we 85, 90%, or what is the future of it? Because a lot of fields, because the quality of papers, the quality of the invoices, it's not handwritten anymore. You have it nicely out of ERP systems, and you get very good quality of invoices, but you have to enrich it with information what you have in the system, because right now you don't know it is for account B, account C, would you like to have it on this or that cost center? And right now with AI, what Imran said, it is more and more connected with each other. So we connected with more databases to pre-fill it with which cost center was it in the last 3 times. Then maybe in the next 3 times it would be the same. But now we are on track to 90-95%, but we have to check, did it really collect the right cost center to put it in and to use it for our clients. But it is better and better quality if you enrich it with more data around, because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was all the time a question of quality of the paper, what you feed in. Now a lot of data came in not as paper, or it came as paper, but in a very nice way, and it came in as data invoice, as e-invoice. But you all the time have the decision on which cost center or where you want to do it and how you would like to book it. And this you can enrich with new databases and with, we call it big data, where you can find or have more findings where you can enrich this. And that is the next step in booking, in automated booking also here. And also with RPA, you can get more data from the surrounding or from the pre-process, like the colleagues in Brazil right now are doing. And that's the way where we go from this 85, 90% to more percent. Because in the end, the plan is somewhere in the future to have a blind booking, but for this it must be 100% or 99.999% right, and we are far from it. So it's just a dream.
And just to add a tiny bit to that, definitely, Ferdinand, so it's a very good point. One thing is a lot of these systems are, I think, what they're calling machine learning. So it's very progressive. So initially, a new engagement will start off with a hit rate of about 85, 90 without any so-called machine learning. But right now, we have clients where the system is picking out about 98% of the data, and it's all virtually correct. It just needs a bit of human involvement. So it's a progressive thing where the machine or the software is constantly learning after every single entry that's done. So yeah, it's a very good point, what Ferdinand makes.
And from an Italian perspective, I can say where we already have the electronic invoicing, the data taken out from the invoices are correctly 100%. So you have 100% match. The thing we have to add, or our input, is where do we want to book it. So you can't say that it's an automatic process, but the data we get from the invoice are 100% correct, because it is a simple data document you are reading in the accounting system, and therefore if the error is eventually on the invoice itself and not in reading out from the invoice in our system. But the thing we have to add, or our input, is where do we want to book this single invoice in, if we want to book it on this cost center or on the other cost center, or if we want to book it on which accounting position we have to choose it. Yes.
Sure, this is of course a process. We get an invoice, we need to read it first, then we have to check whether the reading is correct. If it is correct, then we have to put it on the appropriate cost centers or however we book it. And I see another question on chat, which is very in line with that ideology and with that process thinking. And I would like to direct that question to Justyna. The question sounds, is it possible to connect invoice workflow system with the payments in bank?
Thank you. This is a very interesting question. Let me start by saying that our clients pay for invoices which have already been approved and checked by accounting team, and therefore are posted in the accounting system. That is why we used our Microsoft Dynamics AX to define payments, and it let us generate payments packages for various banks. And such packages may be imported to banking system directly. However, the Airflow system in which we process document can also create a payment workflow.
Yeah, I would say that I can go further, that the process just closes with the bank payment, and of course then with the reconciliation at the end. Okay, so thank you very much for answering that question. I see also another one that I think that we have still time to deliver a response to that. The question I would like to direct to Thomas, and the question is as follows: are tools universal in terms of branch in which a customer do its business?
Yeah, my answer would be somehow mixed, let's say, because you can, in principle, you can use a worldwide tool, but I think it's very important that you customize it to the reality of the country, especially, for example, for Brazil, which is very specific, has a lot of different VATs. It is important that you have a local partner also that helps you to customize the solution, because we've seen many cases, for example, of SAP implementations where the headquarters said, well, we did it in 15 countries, Brazil cannot be that complicated, and if without a local partner, that it's basically impossible to have a successful implementation, for example.
Sure. Okay, so I think that we are going to wrap up today's webinar. So as you have heard from our expert, digitalization is a new way of doing business. What is needed to do it are equipment, tools, and also employees and our customers' adaptation. So we are very pleased that you were today with us, and we will respond, as Justyna said at the very beginning, we will respond individually to each of the questions that has occurred on the chat, and we haven't enough time to respond to them. And I really personally keep my fingers crossed for you and wish you a lot of success in your digital transformation. So thank you very much for your attention. Take care, and I pass the voice to Justyna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues, and thank you to everyone who participated in today's live webinar. If you have any further questions, please contact the speakers. Their contact information is listed in the PDF document. Our next virtual International Expert Roundtable will be held on September For further information, please visit our website rödl.de. Once you exit today's event, you will receive a survey about today's live webinar. We would very much appreciate if you took the time to fill it out and give us your feedback. On behalf of Rödl and Partner and our presenters, thank you for being with us today and enjoy the rest of your day.